What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Stochastic channel. Today, we're talking some college football DFS, Week 7, Wednesday slate. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you by Prize Picks. They have a first match deposit bonus of up to $100 for new users, and they are going to give you one free month of Odd Shopper when you take advantage of this deal. We have all kinds of tools on Odd Shopper to help you with player props, straight bets across the market. We also have player projections that you could take advantage of over at Stochastic. You must be 21 plus to play. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so we dive into a 2-game slate. I use the term greasy lightly. This might be the greasiest game or slate of all time. All time. We currently have UTEP, Florida International, Sam Houston State, New Mexico State. We're going to start on the FIU UTEP side. Florida International's taking a lot of money. This sheet currently has the -1. This is moving through 2 in a lot of spots. This could close around 3. So you're going to find this anywhere between 1 and 3 points. But FIU is the favorite. The total is 44 points. UTEP, 87th in pace. Florida International, 59th. Pass rate for these teams is almost even. UTEP 47.5% pass rate, FIU 48.5%. UTEP has quarterback injuries for days. Gavin Hardison, he hasn't played recently. Allegedly, he was supposed to test out his shoulder yesterday to see whether he could play. If he was able to throw without pain, they're going to let him go. If not, they're going to play backup. UTEP does not have great reporting. We do not have this news. We may or may not get it throughout the day. If we do not, you're just going to have to wait for pregame warmups and see who's taking first-team snaps. Jade McNamara, the backup's hurt. A lot of people believe that Cade McConnell will be the player taking snaps if Hardison is out. This is only impactful because he's the stone minimum, and FIU doesn't exactly have a great defense. They're better against the pass for what it's worth. They're worst run-based team. But at 4,500, maybe you could use McConnell. The slate isn't tightly priced, so I don't know if you need to. But watch who's taking first-team reps at quarterback for UTEP. Going to be very important tonight. Other than that, we move to the backfield. Mike Franklin's missed the last 2 games, which is solidified opportunity for Deion Hankins and Torrance Burgess. Hankins himself was banged up most recently, so when you're looking at the sheet and you see 3 carries in the second most recent game, it's injury-related, not performance. With more health on his side, we just saw him come back and out-carry Torrance Burgess 15-11. I think they're both fine plays, but you price adjust. Hankins is better on DraftKings and FanDuel as the cheaper option. Burgess, more of a tournament play, pay up to be contrarian. At receiver, Tyron Smith is also injured. Game time decision, but also allegedly considering a redshirt. Talk about polar opposites. Maybe he plays, maybe he redshirts and doesn't play again this year. Pretty wild, but if he's active, he's the number 1. If he's out, we've seen exactly what UTEP wants to do. He's been out the last 2 games. Kelly Akari's the number 1. Jeremiah Ballard's the number 2. Marcus Bellum's the number 3. Their targets are pretty close. I would prefer Akari for the safety in terms of routes, yards, target share. But Ballard should also be mixed in. And then Bellin has 16 targets combined over the last 2 games. So if you can't find your way up to Akari, no issues playing Bellin. I'm not getting anyone else after that. Tight end is a rotation. They don't use a lot of other receivers. Amari White, 1 target, even though he's out there a little bit, usually not worth getting to. There's some other cheap guys we can play. For Florida International, this team does have a clear signal caller in Keon Jenkins. He suffered a concussion last week, but allegedly he's cleared to play. He's somewhat mobile, 88 cumulative yards, averaging 250 as a passer. He's been pretty efficient. The offensive line is terrible, and UTEP has a very good pass rush. So sacks could be a problem here. But in terms of the quarterback rankings on this slate, Jenkins has to be number 2 behind Pavia. So 6,700, no issues playing him. What I will say is this could be a decent slate to look at. Maybe something else in the super flex, not quarterback, maybe receiver or running back. The backfield's a 50-50 committee. Shamari Lawrence and Keyshawn Owens. Shamari Lawrence has more of the pass game role, but Owens has out-carried Lawrence in the last 2 games. So that's worth noting. It's basically a 50-50 timeshare. Lawrence has been more efficient, but man, there's no rhyme or reason to the split here and how they're distributing carries one week versus the next. I think Lawrence is slightly safer, and it's probably like a 55-45 split if you were to project it out, but both these running backs should be in play. UTEP's allowing 5.6 yards per carry, so you could see efficiency from both of them. FIU's been a pretty good running team this year. In the receiving game, Chris Mitchell, 7,400, averaging 7.7 targets per game, nearly 92 yards, plays on every single snap. He has a target share north of 30%. He should be one of the first guys in your lineups on a slate, which doesn't really have salary restrictions. Jalen Bracey is the 2, Dean Patterson's the 3, Eric Rivers is the 4. I think those guys are a little bit closer, and you'll see their routes ebb and flow a little bit, especially when you get down to Rivers and Patterson. As far as route rate goes for these guys, sorry, I just scrolled past their team. Eric Rivers last week was at 64%. Dean Patterson was at 72%. This team does not use a tight end on every single play. You saw Jackson McDonald and Josiah Meeman combine for about 55% of the routes. Rocky Beers, he was out there for 20%. But this team will use 4 wide receivers more than most. So I think you can mix and match Rivers, Patterson, and Bracey into lineups as well. I would avoid the tight ends. All right, before we get to our second game, I want to tell you how you guys can get access to this data. Gross oversight by me in previous videos, and got the recommendation from the higher-ups that, Matt, maybe you should tell people how they could actually look at this and take advantage of some of the stuff you always talk about. Well, I'll tell you about it just now. We have a package at Stochastic for College Football DFS, and the link is in the video description below. If you want to check it out more, all you have to do is click it. But we have full DFS projections that's all the way down, each individual statistical category, which can help you with stuff like prize picks too. We have ownership, we have matchup data and player usage. That's the stuff you're looking at right now. So if you don't want to pause on this video, squint to see what each of these numbers say in the video, you can access it yourself by clicking the link in the video description below. So check that out. All right, we move forward. Sam Houston, New Mexico State, 3.5-point spread in favor of New Mexico State, 41.5 total. So trails the previous game a little bit. Both these teams are slow. Sam Houston's 100th in pace. New Mexico State is 128th. Sam Houston has a 51% pass rate. New Mexico State comes in at 44.5. Keegan Shoemaker's played better recently, but the matchup here, it's middling. New Mexico State has been vulnerable, but you're trying to balance this. All right, New Mexico State, 8.3 yards per attempt allowed. Sam Houston State has maybe the worst offense in the country. So it's tough, but I think Shoemaker's pretty locked into his role. He has 61 cumulative rush yards, so he's not taking a ton of sacks. He's actually only taken 5 this year. He's only averaging 184 pass yards per game. I still think I would rather take a shot on whatever UTEP signal caller warms up at the stone minimum, but it's close. Shoemaker and the UTEP situation are very clearly behind FIU and New Mexico State in terms of the quarterback rankings. The backfield for Sam Houston, this team is down their top 6 running backs. Yes, their top 6. So what we think is going to happen is Tobias Weaver leads the backfield. Jalen Washington is the only other running back I think they'll have on the roster active. Aside from Weaver and Washington, I think they're going to use some quarterbacks like Trapper, Panel. I think is going to play some Wildcat for this team and maybe even some true running back. And they also were talking about using their other signal caller. The name's escaping me. I'll pull it up right now. I don't know this guy. Jordan Yates. Excuse me. There it is. So Jordan Yates hasn't accrued a single stat this year. So, I mean, I don't know what the backfield rotation looks like. Tobias Weaver has 8 carries over the last 3 games. He's your best bet. Stone minimum. I don't think you can play Trapper, Panel, or Yates because they have the quarterback designation. There's just a lot of opportunity cost doing that. Maybe you can look at Jalen Washington as a pivot. He played a couple snaps, didn't get a carry, but they literally don't have Gentry, Rabasek, Landon Brown, Charles Crawford. All these guys are out. So this is interesting, but Weaver, Stoneman, I think you could definitely play him. Receiver, they already lost their top 2 guys here as well. Most recently, they lost Ife Adei. With him being out, Noah Smith has asserted himself as an alpha receiver. 26 targets over the last 2 games. He's been pretty efficient with them. Behind him, Malik Phillips and Avante Woodard trail a little bit in terms of routes. You're seeing them coming around 60%. So I would try to get to Smith if you can, but if you can't and you want to just look for a contrarian play on a 2-game slate, I would then turn the attention to Phillips and Woodard. Phillips being ahead of Woodard slightly. From there, it's a pretty nasty rotation. Jay Rockwell, Shane Johnson, tight end Elijah Stone is probably the next guy you'd look at. But yeah, pretty gross once you get beyond those top 3 receivers. New Mexico State has most of the best plays on the slate, which is crazy enough to say. Diego Pavia, very clearly the number 1 quarterback. If you're running 1, it should be him. If you're running 2, he should be in there as well. He should be close to 100% owned. 314 rush yards, averages 221.5 through the air on just 21 attempts. Hyper efficient is Pavia. In the backfield, it's a 3-way committee. Star Thomas handles about 40 to 50% of this. Then you go to Jamani Jones, Monty Watkins handling like 25 to 30 apiece. No real consistency between those two. They basically ping pong who leads the team in carries as the backup to Star Thomas. So if you want to play 1, it's Thomas for me, but I think he's pretty clearly behind FIU rushers and UTEP rushers. In the receiving game, UTEP does not use a clear rotation. New Mexico State does not use a clear rotation, and it is very difficult to decipher. The 2 players with the best routes are Jonathan Brady and Cordell David. They're at 2 very different price points. So I think you can focus your attention on them, Brady being the number 1, Cordell David being the 2. Just that you're sacrificing a lot of targets with Cordell David. The players you're looking at for rotational roles are Trent Hudson, 5 targets last game. Chris Bellamy, 4 targets last game. Jordan Smith, if he's active, he's missed a lot of time, so I don't know if he's going to play. Thomas Wisford, the tight end. And then you can go down all the way to Jordan Parker and Bryce Childress if you're feeling like I need a very contrarian play. The rest of my lineup's pretty chalky. These guys are completely unowned. Those would be names of players that will see the field and likely get 1 or 2 targets overall. But it's pretty difficult to get to New Mexico State pass catchers. I'd rather focus my attention on Noah Smith, the FIU situation, even a couple UTEP guys. But I rank them Brady 1, Cordell David 2, Trent Hudson 3, Chris Bellamy 4, Jordan Parker 5, Bryce Childress 6. All right, that'll do it for us today. If you have a comment, please leave it below. And if you have a question, reach out to me on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. We'll be back tomorrow and Friday and Saturday breaking down all the slates. So stick around. Until then, good luck, everyone. We'll see you next time.